And we're back, Sam, with season 1, episode 12, Whatever the Case May Be. After finding a metal briefcase, Kate reveals that she will stop at nothing to gain its contents. Meanwhile, Saeed enlists the aid of Shannon in translating Rousseau's maps. Dun dun! Do you kind of see why I wanted to start the year off with this one instead of ending the year off?
Yeah, because it's a little happier. It's a little more hopeful. It's jovial. Yeah. Let's say that it has this very jovial energy throughout, and then that slowly dissipates throughout the entirety of the episode. So
it's kind of like a back to business episode. We're stranded, we're surviving, and less about whatever like the mysteries of the island are. That definitely took a back seat in this episode. But what did you think? I mean, what I'm curious to know is how you feel about that, because last week was a pretty big cliffhanger. Charlie almost got killed and Claire got kidnapped, and they discuss it in this episode, but it's very much like we said, back to business. It's kind of going on in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was a little jarring at first because of how it starts. You know, Kate and Sawyer, they find this pool of water with complete with a waterfall. It looks magical. And they're going, and, you know, Michael Giacchino's score is really just doing a lot of heavy lifting. But yeah, so like they, you know, it starts off and yeah, it was real interesting. And then kind of just as they're in the water, I'm just kind of like, man, what about last week? Last week was so dark. When are we going to get? And then they find the dead bodies in the pool, and I was like, "Whoop!"
It was a really good. What do they call it? Like, is it a cold opening intro teaser?
Yeah. Because this is what we're shown before, like the main credits.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the teaser. So yeah, it was a really good teaser, you know, and then yeah, like
I noticed the first thing about it, as soon as the episode started, the music was more cinematic than the previous episodes. Yeah, I've loved all the score so far, but we've mentioned this, how the Lost score is very what do you call it? It's very moody. You know, it doesn't really get cinematic until something big is happening, like Charlie's scene when we thought he was dead. That was huge. The score was very emotional, lots of piano, but everything else is lots of boom, 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 you know, stuff like that. You know, we're telling you this scene is intense because our music says so. You know, it's that kind of vibe. But this one started very mysterious, kind of whimsical, and it kind of fits the idea of starting it off with the tomboy in a tree, you know. And I thought that really felt like it was already magical before they got to the waterfall. It was that whole interlude, and then the way the episode ends as well with the music, it kind of goes back to more cinematic. And at least at this point in the series, it's very different from what we've seen so far. I think it was a good teaser. It was really cool.
Yeah, it really was. And yeah, that was the first thing I noticed, just how like cinematic Giacchino's music was, and we have gotten like just little bits of it. And I think like for the remainder of this episode, it really was, you know, it does sort of like settle back into like, okay, like here we go. This is more of like the Lost score. But when it's really trying to sell those moments, it was really something kind of special. Like I feel like this episode really bookends how impressive Giacchino's musical prowess is, you know, because it starts off with this very cinematic thing and it ends with this rendition of Beyond the Sea. And I thought I just thought that was really cool. Well, but on the whole, this episode was interesting because it is sort of the back to basics sort of vibe. Like, okay, like this is what Lost is about. You know, we're doing this. It was really weird to not have to not have like a resolution or like a working towards a resolution to everything that's happening with Claire.
Mm-hmm.
Which I also sort of noted in my head when everybody towards the end of the episode moves up the shore, and everybody's there and they're like, oh, setting their bags down, they're comfy, making fires, and I'm over here like, what if we just moved closer to where the others are? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're all saying that, oh, like the beach is going to swallow every, the fuselage and stuff. Like, well, what about the others? Like, that would be on my mind. I wouldn't want to move until I knew where those people were, until I knew I had a resolution for that. So again, just on the whole, I thought it was an interesting choice not to immediately continue the Claire portion of the story.
So many of those things are addressed like with just single lines of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. A lot of stuff is talked about. We're not shown. So Shannon mentions Claire was taken 4 days ago. So
Mm-hmm.
time has passed. Jack mentions again, everyone should move into the caves. Saeed brings up the point that a lot of people still don't want to. They haven't given up yet on rescue. So it's all these little things that is just being said through dialogue instead of actually seeing it. So it does feel a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I don't know. I mean, I would like to see, granted, a lot of people aren't in this episode. I would like to see what people are doing. Like, are they still looking for Claire? Like, even though there's no tracks, Locke and Boone are supposedly still looking, but we know they're not. So, I don't know. I kind of wish that was handled in a different way, but I guess in the context of the story, it's like, yeah, okay, it makes sense. They're forced to move, but they're not ready to move in further. This was actually the whole idea of the tides rising was because they were rising in real life. It was just that time of year. They had already been filming for a few months, and they were going to lose the fuselage to the ocean. So they said, "Well, we're going to have to write it into the script."
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so that's what made them move up the coastline a bit. But Saeed brings up a line. Was it to Jack? I guess in the beginning, but he says the tides are rising too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because what does he say? Oh, because he says he's like the tides are rising too quickly. He says something to the fact that like that doesn't make sense, or that's not usual. And Jack replies, "There's a lot about this place that's not usual."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Yeah." So there. Although it is business as usual, the characters are like kind of more open now, and it's in their head. All these little things are kind of adding up. So those are
Yeah.
cool little lines, little moments.
Yeah, and it's, that's really cool. That's a really cool bit about how, like, oh yeah, like this, just because of nature, we now have to include this whole new like little scene, this whole, technically, like, this is what, like, it's not even really, well, I guess it's a plot point, but it's not like very major, but it is just this thing of like, this is what people are going to be doing this episode. This is what most of the people are concerned about. They're going to have to move. I think that's really cool. If you hadn't told me that, I would have just been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes the tides just start rising. Yeah.
And it kind of adds to the survival aspect, which we've discussed. Like, oh, okay, that episode, they're running out of water. This episode, they're running out of food.
Yeah. This episode, somebody's got an asthma problem and we got to solve it. Like, yeah.
Right. It's cool to see those little things because it adds more to the reality of the situation. You could have easily got lost in like, oh, what's the mysteries and what's going on here? But what about all the other characters? What are they doing? We had an episode about boredom.
Yeah.
They're just there being bored, which is a horrible thing to happen when you're in a life and death scenario like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when people mess up and that's when people die.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, you build a golf course and everybody lives. So, and it was actually mixed because that episode was supposed to be. I'm trying to remember. I believe it was after Claire's episode. So they had to like switch it.
Okay.
So they had to switch the ending because they were thinking, oh, wait a minute, they can't build a golf course after this happens to Claire.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they ended up switching it, and they ended up bringing Ethan in at the end of Claire's episode. So it leaves it mysterious, like what happened.
Right.
Now, I want to give a shout out to, I guess, the wardrobe person, because everyone got new clothes this episode.
I noticed that.
You notice that?
Yeah.
Which is always cool. You know, you find dead man's clothes, you wear it.
Yeah.
You know, Jack's rocking that like brown tan like plaid shirt.
Yeah.
But the main reason I bring it up is because Kate is wearing black through the whole episode, and it thematically it just fits because she's like this chameleon, man. She plays off of everyone's emotions, feelings. She changes who she is depending on who she's around, and that's what the color black is. You know, that's why a lot of creative people or artists wear black, because it's a psychological thing. Like you what was it? I'm trying to remember what it is. Like, you're so susceptible to other people's emotions. Black grounds you. It keeps you balanced, and it helps absorb everyone else in like a more controlled way. Like, I heard that on NPR it was like a year ago, and I was like, oh my god, we're all black. But it's also part of that chameleon effect of Kate. You know, we still know who she is. And they even toy with that a little bit in her flashbacks this episode.
Yeah.
When we first see her in the flashback, she's a photographer. She's trying to get a loan. And then the bank is robbed. Okay. Well, then it's at least 1 or 2 commercial breaks later, we find out that she's in on it.
Yep.
So she's a bank robber, Sam.
Yeah. So I want to talk about 2 things in relation to both what you were saying about.
I'll allow time for 3.
Oh, well, thank you. Good, because it might span off into 3 things. But at least 1 in terms of Kate being a chameleon who plays off of people's emotions, and 2, all of the stuff about the heist. So it was interesting because we already know she's a criminal. We already know she has a record. We don't know what she's done. So at this point, you know, learning that, like, oh, she's robbing banks, like, that was kind of an interesting. I don't know. That was a twist. I was like, oh, okay, she's a bank robber. You know, like, that kind of threw in, especially how Lost likes to play with, you know, expectations and stuff. Having Kate be part of, you know, this robbery, it was surprising, but it also wasn't. Like, oh, okay, sure. You know, she's that kind of criminal. She's got this Bonnie and Clyde thing going on with this guy. I don't remember. Jason, I think, is his name.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. But one thing I noticed, and I'm trying to remember when it happens, if it happens before the final heist flashback or after. But when Kate and Jack are burying or are uncovering the marshal, and she does the sleight of hand, I noticed it right away too, and I was like, she got his wallet, but she also got something else. Like that was a little weird how she did it. And then when she, you know, like, she does the whole thing, and Jack's like, the key's not in here, and she's like, it's not? Okay. I'm sorry. 100%. I also did not believe you, Evangeline Lilly.
Oh, yeah.
You were such a bad liar in that moment. I was like, yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure.
I guess we should bury him again.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, gee golly willikers.
Oh, man.
Oh, well. Sorry for nothing, Jack. Like,
yeah.
So that was an interesting thing, and I'm glad that. See, I feel complicated about how Jack deals with Kate, because you know, he had his chance to know what Kate's history is, like what she did, everything. He had his chance to know, And he said no, that it didn't matter. But then every single time Kate does something that goes against what Jack believes in, he brings it up.
Yeah.
He brings up, it's just because, you know, you don't trust people, you're a criminal, stuff like that. I don't think he ever says outright that she's a criminal, but that's just the feeling that he gets, like he's dealing with a criminal, somebody with a past. And I think she's catching on to that too. And so that's why she doesn't want to open the case with him. You know, that's why she is spending so much time away. And it's like, okay, and I'm sorry, but that's on Jack.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also 100% right, because he knows that she is conning him into getting this case from Sawyer. I was actually really surprised when she says that there's guns inside of the case. I was like, oh crap. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a little disconcerting. But I was also like, I don't think that's what she's after. So my whole train of thought is like, are there really guns in the case? I don't know. So when Jack opened it up at the end and there were actual guns, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. This is going to be a problem we're going to have to deal with. Okay.
Yeah.
She was telling the truth. But yeah. So back to the whole Jack catching her in a lie. There's that moment, but then when we flash back to the heist after we know that she's a part of it, and I don't know, her lover Jason, he's like holding her with the gun, saying, like, talking to the manager of the bank, like, I'll give you till 3 until I kill her. There's an interesting cut to two people inside of that bank crowd. Mm-hmm. There's the woman who earlier, she's in like a white blouse and like a brown jacket, and she's like dirty blonde hair, and she's so freaked out, and she looks up and then she looks away. But there's the guy who's just like 3 feet away from Kate.
He's like the older guy, right?
The older guy, and he's just kneeling. He's got like the dark blue shirt, and he's just kneeling, and he's just looking very intently at her and the guy. And I don't know if this is meant to be read this way, but I took it as that he also didn't believe either of them. I have this little headcanon that, like, and it's so weird because it's just such a quick moment. But in my head, in that moment, as I saw this, I was like, that he's an acting coach. So he's watching them and he's seeing them do this thing. He's like, this is a performance. They're lying. These guys are liars. Like, that's how I took it. That's probably not what that guy. This isn't Star Wars. I have to remind myself, not everybody on screen has a backstory, Sam.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I just kind of like, that was an interesting cutaway.
It was, yeah.
And so knowing, you know, that obviously it was a performance, that it was all fake, I also was kind of like, oh yeah, I 100% don't buy this. Mm-hmm. So it's so weird. And then of course, Kate, within the end of that heist's flashback, also reveals that it was never about robbing the bank. It was just about getting into the safety deposit box.
Right.
So she's playing everybody. And yeah, so yeah, I thought that was like, how they're unfolding and how they're like giving us information about Kate is so interesting. Whereas, like, I don't know, any other show would just be like, oh, there's trouble brewing, and then it's like, and then Kate comes in and is like, I have a troubled past. I don't like to talk about it, but I'm just gonna say briefly that there was this one time, and then we'll get us exposition. So it's the fact that we're seeing all this stuff unfold, and there's like little twists in how we think the narrative is going to go. Again, I think it's just, they're just like throwing wrenches into the plot so that it's something that we expect and then also something we're not. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's like, oh yeah, Kate's a criminal. Like, oh hey, she also happens to be a bank robber. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But she's really not. Like, what? You know, and I know Abrams didn't have a hand, I'm assuming, in this episode because he's not one of the credited writers.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you bring him up because this was the last episode he's credited as like one of the showrunners.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, because when after she shoots all the robbers and the bank manager looks at her, he asks her, like, who are you? And in that moment, I got like a Sydney Bristow Alias sort of vibe. Like, Oh, what if she's not a criminal? What if she's a spy? You know, what if she's
Pulls
some
off
kind
her
of
wig.
spy? Yeah, she pulls off her wig, you know, and she's got like super red hair.
Her name's Jennifer Garner.
Whoa, oh dang.
But my real name's Elektra.
Oh God. Why do you have to bring that up? Why do you got to remind me of Elektra?
Oh man. I'm sorry, Sam, but my name's not Maggie. I love that line. I love that line she gives the guy. He's like, "You better kill me, Maggie, because I'm gonna find you. My name's not Maggie."
It's like, yeah.
Oh, shoot him
What
in the
is
face.
it?
Oh man. Yeah, it's really. I like Jack, but again, I don't like the way he kind of approaches Kate. Because I agree with what you say about Jack 100% until this episode. Because she cons Jack into digging up a dead body for her, you know? And it's a little off-putting, but at the end, like, I love when Jack is like screaming at her. He's like, you're lying, just tell the truth. You finally see that she pushed him to that point. It's much easier to get Sawyer to push Jack for violence, and even then he's going to get Saeed to do it. But Kate's the one who's like pushing him far enough to like snap. And he was 100% in the right. You know, it's like, yeah, it's none of his business, but she's manipulating people, you know, now. And man, I was surprised watching. I was like, oh crap, there are guns in this briefcase. I forgot. Okay. So now there's, I think she said 4, right?
There's 4 9mm pistols. Oof. I forget how many rounds of ammunition she said.
Yeah, but there's guns definitely on this island now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, in this episode, I like how both Jack and Sawyer are seeing right through her bullshit. Like we're episode 12. You know, we've been doing this dance for 12 episodes. We can see through it. You know, I'm like, okay, that's interesting because it also says a lot about those two guys, you know, and their intelligence. Like, okay, they get it. Jack is good at reading people. Sawyer, he's
you can't con a con man, dude.
Yeah, like he's good at conning, so that's why he's trying to figure out Kate, but he knows what she's capable of. And this episode just kind of shows that from what we've seen, she's more dangerous than Sawyer. Sawyer's been like this force of chaos through the series, this first half of the season, which we're now officially halfway through the first season.
Ooh, yay. Only 12 more to go.
Yeah, he's just been this agent of chaos. But Kate's the one who's actually, we've seen her shooting people now in her past, you know, even before, that's pre-Island. And now we're seeing how she's manipulating and toying with Sawyer. And we get the relationship, kind of. It looks like those two are growing a lot closer. But we see how she's also toying with Jack, someone she does like and respect. And it's, man, it just this episode just made things so much more complicated for Kate's backstory and for her relationship with both those guys.
Yeah, and it's, well, I mean, it was especially telling with Sawyer's episode because we can see that he is, you know, he's a sleazy con man, you know, but he's conning people out of money, and never once did I ever get the impression that he was a physical threat to anyone. You know, second episode, he's pulling out a gun and shooting a polar bear. But look at how many shots it's taking him to kill that polar bear.
Yeah, and the fact that he couldn't kill the marshal.
Yeah, he couldn't kill the marshal. So it's all of these things that are like, Sawyer has from day one, from minute one, been putting on an act. Kate is, but she's putting on an act because she knows she can kill people. She's done it before. She has now officially admitted that she has killed someone. And apparently it's the man she loves. Now, who is that? Was that her lover? Is it a family member? I don't know. But all we know is that she's killed a man. And quite frankly, yeah, you're right. I am 100% terrified of Kate now.
Mm-hmm.
I might predict that she's going to go full Daenerys at some point and just lay waste to people. I know we're jumping ahead, but I would like to claim my victory for one prediction being right in that we got an epic gunfight with Kate.
Oh yeah, we did. All right. Well, good job.
It was
another
pretty
check
quick
mark for Sam.
Too. Yes, another
that was
point
quick and accurate. I dug it.
Yeah, I was like, oh dang! So like she's got training, she's got precision. I mean, I guess that comes from the last episode. She was talking with Jack about what she would go hunting with her dad.
Yeah,
and like they would. I
don't know if
hours.
You would use a handgun when you go hunting, but
no, you wouldn't. But the fact that they would hunt for hours just tracking like one deer. Well, one, her dad's what, Marines? Is that what she said?
I don't remember.
He's in the armed forces though, and so one. And I'm also sort of just picking up the vibe that I'm thinking Kate's an only child. So she's got a military dad. She's a military brat, so they're always going around. So she's close with her dad. They hunt together. Yeah, her dad's probably taught her gun training, so she knows how to handle herself. One, she's a criminal. We've seen that she's in league with bank robbers. She knows how to defensively maneuver, marshals that are after her. So yeah, Kate's pretty dangerous.
And these are credible bank robbers because of course I'm rewatching, so I remember the twist. I'm like, okay, Kate's in on it. But watching them, like, oh, wait a second, like these guys are full on bank robbers. Kate was playing a role. These guys aren't. They were gonna murder the manager right there. And I was like, oh man, and the fact that like Kate took them down. I was like, ooh, okay, that pushes it just even further,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sawyer's the guy who's playing the character. He's playing Sawyer. He's playing the con artist. That's someone he had to become to survive. He ended up becoming the con artist. Whereas Kate, on the other hand, we really don't know. We see that Kate is the disguise. It's almost like Sawyer is putting on the mask of acting tough, whereas Kate is hiding hers. But yeah, that's essentially Kate's story. She goes through all of this trouble of robbing a bank and manipulating these two guys to get a little toy airplane. Another mystery. Why, Sam? Another mystery. Maybe we'll find out.
I don't know.
Maybe we won't.
I wanna figure out what type of airplane it is. Because it looks like some sort of like it doesn't look like 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 an airliner or something. But it actually looks like an army plane. It looks like a cargo carrier. And it also has 4 numbers written on one of the wings, the right wing, if I'm not mistaken. Numbers 50, 26, 50,
something
25.
Like that. Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wait and see.
I guess we're going to have to wait and see.
Let's talk about some of the other characters we got to see this go around, which we haven't really got to see in a while. We got to see Sun just for a little bit.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Jin in forever. Sun has kind of just been in the background. But I thought it's interesting how when Kate was telling Jack about the guns in the case, she kept like looking over at Sun, and Jack's just like, she doesn't know English. So I thought that was interesting.
Is showing Jack.
Yeah, and it also kind of shows like Kate's paranoia a bit. And as the audience, we know that Sun can speak English. So we know that she's just standing there, and there's a couple of shots where she's looking at them, and she's listening.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Actually, yeah. As soon as Kate drops that the case has 4 guns in it, that's actually when Sun like picks up her plant and like leaves.
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. But it's like, yeah, like, so yeah, you're right. Like Kate's just paranoid, but then in her looking at Sun, and then Jack kind of looks at Sun, and then they just keep talking. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. So they're just like, she's not going to say anything because she doesn't understand us anyway. Little do you know, she does.
She's a spy.
She's the spy. Oh man, she's Jennifer Garner. Whoa. Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, so that was cool. I'm glad we got to see Sun. I really want to see more from her. Mm-hmm. We got to see Rose.
I know, she's a Lost Legacy favorite, man.
Yeah,
we finally got Rose back.
Oh,
I love her, man, and she just comes in. She's this little ball of joy. She's our Guinan, you know. She's our Whoopi Goldberg. And like, I like how matter of fact she is. And like, okay, I get it. You know, Charlie's going through his thing, very traumatic experience, but she just kind of just cuts through the BS, man. He's like, you don't have to be rude, Charlie. You know, and he fights back too, you know, but she really gets to him, you know, and in a good way, and he ends up helping. And I think it's interesting because she's kind of this, we already talked about it, like the last time we saw her was with Jack, and they bring it up here again, saying that she has faith that her husband is still alive. And we mentioned that's either tragic or prophetic. And now it's bringing in this, the character Rose is bringing in like religion and spirituality to Lost, which we haven't really touched on before. It's kind of hinted because she's like praying, I think, when she's talking to Jack on the beach in episode 4 or something. But we haven't really discussed that in the context of this show. And even then, like, there's a lot of hints when Locke is trying to weed Charlie off the drugs. He says, you have to look up. You know? And it's like, what? And Locke's playing with him. He's like, oh, no, your guitar's up there. There's all these little moments that, like, you think, like, wait, is he talking about, like, faith or God? It's like, nope, talk about the island. Like, oh, yeah, got it. Yeah. But this one in particular, Rose tells Charlie to pray with her, and they start praying, which is really interesting because we already know Charlie has a religious background, which we've only ever seen in his flashback. Which is also interesting is because Dominic Monaghan is the exact opposite. He wants nothing to do with organized religion, and they said that was one of his struggles playing the role, bringing in the religious side of it. I don't know, that always intrigues me just as an actor, like, because it's never just about, oh, I don't believe this, you know, but I could play it, you know. For some it is, but for someone like Dominic Monaghan, and I know several actors out there who they've played religious roles, or their role was somehow shaped by religion, but they have very differing opinions on it, and they're like, no, I'm like against that. I'm against that religion or that church or whatever. You know, I'm kind of speaking in generalizations here. So it's fascinating to me to see that, and I don't know. I'm asking you because I don't have Dominic Monaghan here to ask. Sam, how did Dominic Monaghan get there mentally as an actor? How does he do it? You know, is he just pretending? One can say all acting is pretending.
Yeah,
but that's true. I don't know. That's so I want to keep an eye out for that, especially because a lot of that wasn't known when I was originally watching the show.
Yeah.
So now years later, I kind of want to keep an eye out for that. Like, oh, okay, I want to see Charlie's relationship with religion and faith, also in the context of the character in the show, but also the actor playing him as well.
Write down your question, and one day when we get Dominic Monaghan on the show, you can ask him.
Yeah. That's okay, because I've already asked you, so question's gone. But yeah, anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying this is our first little taste of religion in this show. Not really faith, because it's almost like these weird pseudo faith is coming in, or however you want to talk about it. Like, I don't know what the hell John Locke is talking about, but it sounds a lot like faith. You know, another mysterious layer to this island.
I feel like the island is just an onion,
just
slowly trying to peel away all the layers.
Mm-hmm.
But underneath it all, it's still onion, and they still put too much of it on my burger whenever I order takeout.
I don't need a full onion. Just give me like a few little rings, and I'm happy.
Yeah. Even then, if you're gonna give me the diced kind, you just gotta just pick up a few, just dash it in there. That's it.
If it's a good onion, you don't need that much.
Exactly.
You just need a little bit, here and there.
Exactly. When I order a burger, I don't want to be tasting onion plus burger.
Yeah. I like the ratio of like one little bite of onion per bite. You know? I don't want to be eating several rings at a time. I'm like, oh, I want to taste the meat.
Yeah, exactly. Aside from that, Shannon got a lot to do this episode.
Yeah, and I'm really glad because, one, it's been a while since we've seen her, and every time we do see her, she's just kind of just putzing around. She doesn't really do much on the show except just like fill the background and fill little scenes here and there. So they actually gave her something to do this time.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it. One, I also, with ensemble shows like this, it's sort of like you're here for a reason. Please tell me that the reason is for something other than, being that annoying character, or being that character who just doesn't want to contribute, like, yeah, or heaven forbid, you're just the character that's eye candy. And I kind of feel like that's sort of what Shannon has been in a few episodes. But it was so I was really glad to see that, oh, she actually has something to do this episode. And it's like, yeah, it's related to the thing that was all the way back in the pilot where she's, I also kind of feel like it's a little weird that out of all these survivors, she's the only person that speaks French. I mean,
if you think about it statistically, there probably were a few on the plane, but most of the plane died.
That's true. Or they're in the tail section, so they're not with them.
That's true. But I mean, out of 48 survivors, I think, I don't know. I want to. How many people in the world speak French who don't live or come from France?
Yeah.
Well, you know who we should ask, Sam?
Who should we ask?
Our one listener from France. Now, at the time of recording this episode, our one listener from France has listened to all of them. And I know it's only one because the amount of downloads it goes concurrently with each episode that comes out. Like, okay, cool. There we go.
So our one listener in France, thank you. Thank you for consistently listening. We hope that you stay on for this voyage with us. We're happy you're here, and if you have any way to let us know how many people speak French outside of,
but I'm assuming our favorite French person is in France, so they're surrounded by it.
Well, yes, I know. But that was the whole point of the question. The whole point of the question was, how many people outside of France speak French? And you said, who we should ask.
Oh.
Our one French listener.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I just contradicted myself.
You did. You contradicted yourself. Don't be a Kate, Matthew.
Well, I do wear black a lot. I do also have a suspicion, though. So if you are a French listener, reach out to us. You know our socials. We'll drop it at the end of the episode again. Ask us some questions, preferably in English. Hashtag Ask Sam and Matt. Because I do have the rousing suspicion that this is an American person. But they're using, what's it called? Like the VPN or something?
Yeah.
From France. That happens. Or
that
they
can
set
happen.
up their Apple account or computer while in France. That also
Oh,
happens.
yeah.
Or I just listened to an episode on like gangs of thieves in Paris who like their whole job is to rob tourists.
Yeah.
Unless someone stole the MacBook and it just happened to find our podcast and fell in love with it and has continued to listen each time. See, I
Oh
like
my
to believe that
goodness.
story. You know,
Yeah.
the reason they didn't trade in this laptop, which probably cost a lot of money, is because they dug our show.
Wow. You have quite an imagination.
Well, that's why we're watching Lost. Because if anything doesn't get answered, we'll fill it in ourselves. We're going to find those legacies, Sam.
Yeah.
Our last episode is going to be called Legacies Found.
Legacies Found. Wow. Wow. Okay, write that down before you forget.
Oh, no.
I'll
Speaking
remind
of forgetting, I forgot what we were talking about.
We were talking about Shannon. We were talking about Shannon finally has something to do, and what she's doing is she is translating Rousseau's notes that are all written in French.
Maggie Grace, who was also, after this, became the kidnapped daughter in Taken.
Which also took place in France.
Oh, that's true. What if it's Liam Neeson?
Coincidence?
Liam Neeson, if you're in France listening to our podcast, let us know.
Let us know.
We want to listen. So, funny behind-the-scenes story, Maggie Grace, while promoting Taken, she said that she had just got dumped by this guy who I believe was a co-star. I don't know how much she had worked on, so I don't know if it was a co-star from Lost or what. But Liam Neeson calls this guy and gives him the talk. I'll find you, and I will kill you. Oh my God, that's awesome!
Wow.
And Maggie Grace was also in what was that movie with Guy Pearce in space?
Lockout.
Because if you're listening, you didn't know this. Sam loves prison break movies, especially when they're set in space.
I just
Lockout
realized
wasn't on your list.
Okay, so to preface, the reason why was I finally watched Alien 3. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I realized that one of my favorite subgenres in film is the space prison movie. And so I made a list on my Letterboxd account, and the reason why I didn't put Lockout on that list is because I haven't seen it.
What?
I haven't seen it.
Dude, and the bad guy is I don't remember the actor's name, but Rudy from Misfits.
Yeah, and Cassidy in
that's right, Preacher.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a good movie.
I love that guy.
I really wish like Hollywood had done more with Maggie Grace. I thought she had a lot of potential. Now she's kicking ass on Fear the Walking Dead, and I think she just had her first kid, so she's now a kick-ass mom as well.
Hey,
so
good for you, Maggie
all
Grace.
Started with a little show called Lost.
It all started where she translates some French nonsense writing on a little show called Lost.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I wanted to talk about Shannon and Boone. Of course they have that sibling dynamic. Sometimes I feel like Boone is just a real dick. He's a real dick specifically to his sister. And you know what? I don't know their backstory yet. I don't know, how they are. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's just, that they are brother and sister. And that's just how brother and sister.
And we have already established that they're both rich, privileged, and entitled.
Yes.
So I think that's probably a big driving factor of the way they treat each other as well. They're very spoiled.
Yeah. So there's that. So it was interesting that this episode starts for them where she's sort of criticizing him for going out with Locke all the time. Like, what are you doing? You're just going out with Locke and all that. And Boone is just like, well, at least I'm doing something. You're just here. Nobody likes us. We're a joke. And he ends that scene by telling Shannon, "You're useless."
I know.
Like, dang, that is brutal. That is harsh. It also reminded me of your note in the second episode of where you said that Shannon is useless.
And I want to preface this, or not preface, asterisk. I'm going to asterisk this because I know that's not the word I was looking for, but I love Maggie Grace. I really, really like the character of Shannon. Mm-hmm. But when I call her useless, it's usually because she did something I was really not cool with.
Okay.
Like, I'm pretty sure, when she manipulated Charlie to get the fish for her.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. But, I mean, it's the same. It's that same feeling of Locke. Like, I hate saying it, but what we've seen of Locke in his past, he's a pathetic character, and they really drive that point home. And that's what it kind of makes it the twist even bigger, because you're like, oh, you feel really bad for this guy, this horrible life, and then you get this twist and you see who he is on this island. Shannon's kind of the same way. Like, I really hate saying it, but everything Boone is saying about his sister is right. Mm-hmm. He's just being a dick about it. Mm-hmm. And I think a big part of it too is like Shannon knows he's right. And I think you can see a lot of it this episode, because previously when Boone would say something like that, she would go out to prove him wrong. This is the first time we've actually seen her not really pursue it, but like it came to her. So Saeed's the one who goes to her and asks for her help in translating the maps. And she really doesn't want to do it, but he slowly convinces her. Mm-hmm. And you could just tell, like, her reactions. It's very hard to explain unless you're actually physically watching it. But I got this sense like she was surprised and also afraid, because she could be useful, but she could also fail. Mm. And that's very much the vibe I get from Shannon, especially after this episode. Everything Boone has said is right, and Shannon believes it. Mm-hmm. She believes she's useless. Yeah. And this is the first time we've seen her kind of overcome that. And of course, her and Saeed, it's not smooth sailing through this episode. But by the end, we see them like they're working together. And you do see there's a little sense of pride in her accomplishment, dare I say, a hint of confidence in Shannon by the end of this episode.
Oh, yeah.
I even though she's barely been in the show, what they have included of her has all built up. This episode wouldn't have paid off as much without those tiny little scenes.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. But what do you think about the whole Shannon Saeed team up? Because if you're gonna have an ensemble, you better damn well mix up the cast.
Yeah.
I love Hurley working with Charlie. I love Hurley with Kate, Walt, and Sawyer. It's like, mix it up. So I really wasn't expecting Saeed and Shannon, and I love like all their interactions in this episode.
Yeah. I thought that was a pair up I didn't know that I wanted. Mm-hmm. Again, if you're gonna have an ensemble, mix it up. And yeah, what better person to have a team up with than Saeed? Because Saeed he's a gentle soul, man. He is just like, he's caring, he's understanding, but he's also, he's like, it also sort of feels like he knows how to push you to do your best job. When Shannon is just complaining about stuff, he's just like, no, don't worry about that. Just focus. It's gonna, that sort of thing. I was like, yeah, and then that's sort of where you can see her confidence growing, because from what it sounds like, she's never had positive reinforcement.
Right.
It's just been this like, you're not good enough. Oh, you're just doing this for that. You're useless. It's like that's all she's been told her whole life. So it sort of feels like, while we're on the subject of people masking each other, or people having masks, mm-hmm. and people playing into types, Kate being this mask of whatever she is, Sawyer playing the conman mask. That's what Shannon has been doing. She's just been playing the useless sort of, debutante who's, I'm pretty and that's how I'm going to get through life, by having people do things for me. Whereas now, yeah, she has this sense of pride, however small it may be, in the fact that she was able to figure out exactly what Saeed wanted to know. She translated Rousseau's notes, and it's just the lyrics to the French translation of Bobby Darin's Beyond the Sea.
Did he do the original?
I feel like he did.
I don't know.
That's the one that's in Finding Nemo, which is the movie that she referenced. That the guy that she was with had a kid who would watch that movie 900 times a day, the movie with the fish.
Yeah, but I think it was originally a French song.
Okay.
I think Bobby Darin's just the one who had like the most popular version of it.
Semantics, Matthew. Semantics.
Yeah, because originally it's just La Mer, which translates to the sea, by French composer, singer, and showman Charles Trenet. Trenet? I don't know. Interesting. Oh, yeah, here we go. The lyrics are used on the episode, whatever the case may be, of the TV series Lost, as notations on some notes made by Rousseau that Said and Shannon were trying to translate. According to Wikipedia, which I can say after watching this episode, this entry is correct.
Good job, Wikipedia.
Oh, it's also in the opening credits for Steve Martin's LA Story. Forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
When you see just the giant hot dog flying over Los Angeles. You remember that?
Yeah. Forgot about that. Is this our first LA Story connection with Lost? I hope there's more.
Well, they were flying to Los Angeles, so.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Steve
number
Martin,
2.
man. The island is Steve Martin.
This is all Steve Martin's fever dream.
I know. Oh.
It's all some weird bit embedded somewhere inside of LA Story.
Well, so who are we going with MVPs this time?
I'm gonna give my MVP, surprisingly or not, to Michael Giacchino.
Oh.
I thought that the music was so good this week. Mm-hmm. Again, like we said, like the lot, and you and me, in outside of this podcast, we've talked about. I don't want to call it our problem with Michael Giacchino, but it's something that we haven't liked with a lot of his live action work, and that it all feels very similar. It's this weird, like, bombastic stuff that's just very dun, 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 something like that. It's mood music, but on a cinematic level. All his live action stuff feels like that. We both agree, though, that his best work is always animation. His score for The Incredibles, his score for Up, his score for Ratatouille, those are amazing. Those are great. They are legit scores, that have this sort of soul in them. So yeah, I think it's cool. So this show has kind of shown me that he has it's kind of like the flourish that happens in the second part of the pilot that he does, that feels kind of like Sergio Leone. It feels like something out of a Leone film. But yeah, I just feel like the music was very, I don't know, it was so much different than what I was expecting for the show, what we've gotten in the show so far. And then that book ended with, the music at the end. Again, it just feels cinematic, and it doesn't take me out of Lost, but it takes me out of the viewing of Lost, and then, like, yeah, I'm just here. I'm experiencing, like, this show. And then, I get that little flourish, and then the episode ends, and it's like, yeah, like, I don't know. I really liked the music this episode. Michael Giacchino, you're a genius. I cannot wait to hear your score for Matt Reeves as the Batman. I think it's going to be great. I think you're great, man.
Wow. Okay. I guess I'm going to have to give it to,
Gotta give it to Vincent the dog, I know.
Damn it, I thought you were going to give it to Evangeline Lilly. Because I feel like she
Because you
deserves
weren't
it.
going to. Oh, yeah, she 100% deserves it, yeah.
So I'm going to give it to her.
Alrighty.
Some close. It was close, though, because I was even thinking of giving it to L. Scott Caldwell, who plays Rose, because it was just really good to see her again. I also considered giving it to Maggie Grace, but I like this. Giacchino and Evangeline Lilly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we wrap up, at the end, or towards the end, while Shannon is singing the song to Saeed, we get that last shot of Boone watching from the trees. It's not that I dislike Boone. It's just they're obviously going one route with this guy's story. It's just pissing me off. He's just a dick. We've mentioned it several times in this episode. We've mentioned it several times in the past. We're going to continue to mention it in the future. He's a dick.
Well, this episode, a lot of this episode is about manipulation. And to varying degrees, that's kind of what everybody's doing in this episode. Obviously, Sawyer doesn't really care what's in the case. He just wants it because, it sets off Kate.
Yeah.
Kate wants the case, so she's going to manipulate Sawyer to give it to her. When she can't do that, she's going to manipulate Jack. To lesser extents, Michael and Hurley making fun of Sawyer not being able to open the case.
Yeah.
Kind of what gets him out away from everybody so that he can drop the case off of a high, place to open it up, that's to a lesser extent. Even Saeed talking to Shannon about, like, hey, you're the only one who can do this, like, I'll owe you I need a favor from you. Like, that's less manipulation, more of just like, hey, you are kind of the only person who can help me with this.
And it's also like he knows how to talk to her.
Yeah.
Saeed's an interrogator.
He knows how to get everybody. To people. Yeah. He knows that he get what he wants, but
he's also living on the beach with Shannon and Boone, and he knows how they treat each other.
Exactly.
So I think he instantly knows that, like, oh, that's okay. To get to her, you have to go the opposite route.
Exactly. And then to kind of just tie that all off, I think out of everybody on the island, Boone is easily the most manipulatable person amongst the survivors.
Right.
Now that Ethan is no longer part of Locke's, hunting party team, whatever, again, I feel like not to rag on the writers, but again, I feel like that should have been set up more, have more time with Ethan and Locke so that we can see that sort of relationship, all of that. And then now that that's gone, what does Locke do now? Who does he confide in, or any of that stuff? Because he just kind of gets paired up with Boone when they're hunting for Claire. And he kind of just doesn't want Boone around.
Yeah.
It isn't until he sort of realizes that Boone is sort of going to go with whatever the last person who was talking to him, their mindset. And it isn't until that, like, they discover that steel underneath the dirt. It isn't until that moment that I think Locke is like, okay, you're going to be somebody that I can work with. So I feel like, that, and the fact that this episode, the only thing that Boone was able to do was steal the axe.
Yeah.
From the shore.
Yeah.
For Locke.
It's because it's, I gotta agree with you. He's the most easily manipulated one on this island. But it's not so much that he's listening to the last person talk to him, because he has clashed with others before, and with Jack as well.
That's true.
But he also listens to Jack. Like he's smart, but it's like he's just too cocky. Even we don't even see him act cocky, but it's the way he takes charge, or he tries to. It's all the way he approaches everything. It's kind of like the guy who he's always been successful. Everyone's always done what he says. So no matter what I do, it's going to work out. And it doesn't. Same thing like him stealing the water, him trying to steal the guns. Like all of his motivations have been in his heart is in the right place. He just doesn't know how to do it properly, approach the situation properly.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing with Locke is, yeah, he trusts Locke because Locke's like this alpha hunter, you know, and he hasn't really had any reason yet to butt heads with him.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. But while talking about all this, let's talk about predictions. What do you think's going to happen? With anything, I guess with Boone or anything.
Yeah, good question. So I feel like that last shot of Boone looking at Shannon, I feel like that's a little telling. That's a little worrisome. So I feel like there's going to be a massive falling out between the siblings. I also feel like we are eventually, I mean, obviously, I feel like we're going to have to address like the Claire issue at some point. But I think after this episode, Charlie is going to set out to go hunt for Claire. Probably he'll give a rousing speech to go hunt for Claire, and people will join him. And kind of want a fun one. Well, okay, this isn't a fun one, but when we were talking about Rose and how religion has sort of started coming into play with Lost, and how whatever it is Locke is talking about feels like it's faith, but we don't really know in what. I am predicting that those two are going to butt heads at some point. Maybe not directly, because
Rose and Locke?
Rose and Locke.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe not directly, because I don't think Locke is the type of person to directly deal with a threat, what he perceives as a threat. But I do feel like both of their ideologies are going to start clashing. They will duel on the psychic plane.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
X-Men
Professor
style.
X, yeah.
Yeah, because he's Professor X, yeah. It's my whole prediction.
And she's Guinan, so that's perfect.
She's Guinan. She's the Guinan of Lost. So, it's going to be great.
It's perfect.
Their battle will be legendary. And activate the secret volcano that's on the island. That's what the mountain is.
Sounds good, man. So next time we're going to be talking about episode 13, Hearts and Minds. As Shannon grows closer to Saeed, Boone struggles to find his role amongst the survivors. Meanwhile, Kate discovers a fellow survivor's secret. Dun-dun. So, all that is next time. And, yeah, man, I think that's a pretty good episode. This episode is for the new year, and who knows what's coming.
Yeah.
More Lost. That's what I know for sure.
Yeah, one thing we can be sure. More Lost and more Lost Legacies.
That's true. So, until next time, Happy New Year.